Well, good morning. It's a little few minutes past 9 o'clock on a Friday, so it's time for Coffee with Karl. I'm Karl from TRIDEC, and we are excited to have our guests join us today. I have to apologize up front. I had some technical difficulties. I had to switch my iPad. I can't see that our guests are on right now.
We're here.
Oh, you are. There you are. You just popped on. Awesome. Whew, thanks. It's this technology world that we all live in. See, that's why you guys are such great partners. Thank you. Today, our guests are Rebekah Woods, the president of Columbia Basin College. Good morning, Rebekah.
Good morning, Karl.
Thanks for popping onto my screen and just saving my whole day.
You're welcome.
And Sandra Haynes, who's the Chancellor of WSU Tri-Cities. Good morning, Sandra.
Good morning, Karl. So great to be here.
Well, we're going to...
Technology difficulties.
You know, I think we all go through it. I think we're all used to it, whether it's leaving the mute button on or switching devices midstream or running out of bandwidth. I think we've all are living in the same technology-driven meeting age, and it just happens, so.
Yes, it does.
Well, obviously today our topic is higher education in the Tri-Cities, and we'll kick the discussion off today by talking about coffee and or mugs. And I have talked about it before, but I'm a Costco Cougar. My wife's a Coug, so I have a lot of Coug gear, but I don't have any CBC gear. My neighbor actually, I know, my neighbor's an instructor at CBC, and I saw him over the fence last night. I'm like, hey, do you got a coffee cup or anything? He's like, no, sorry, man, I don't have anything. But I did wear a dark blue shirt, and I have my Cougar mug that I think is kind of the colors of CBC. So I'm trying to shoot the gap here a little bit. So.
Appreciate the effort. We'll take it.
Okay, thanks. Let's start with Rebekah. What do you have for coffee or a mug, or what are you drinking this morning?
Yeah, so no surprises. I do have a CBC mug.
It's a nice looking mug.
What else would I show up with? But yeah, this is one of the first mugs that when I got here almost 3 years ago, when you land at a new school, go to the bookstore, you know, load up with all of the paraphernalia. And so this is one of the first mugs I bought. So I am drinking, I'm past my coffee for the morning. I have a very structured routine. I drink 2 cups of coffee, and then I move on to, I drink a pot of decaf green tea and detox tea combined. So I'm on my last cup of my tea.
Wow.
Yeah.
Should we ask then, where do you go to after that? Is that a normal question? Water?
Water the rest of the day until the evening, and then you know, I enjoy wine country and all that it offers.
Good answer. Sandra, how about you? I am looking forward to seeing your mug or having a coffee story that you got this morning.
So I have my WSU mug, as you might imagine, but I also it's the ASW SUTC mug, so it's our student government mug. So I'm students here today too. Actually, the very first mug that I bought when I got here got broken in one of my 3 moves when I first. So, anyway, very glad to have the students give me this mug. Earlier we were debating maybe I should have the psychologist mug. But we landed on the WSU mug, and I'm not a big coffee drinker, so I actually have just water in here.
That's okay.
I have to admit it.
That's great. I think we've learned in doing these for a while now. It's all about the story. The story is the important thing. It doesn't matter what we drink or what we're drinking it out of. It's just the story. Well, let's get into our discussion. And Sandra, let's start with you. And obviously, as everybody knows, I'm new to the Tri-Cities, just 6 months now. But let's kick it off with maybe tell me about you. So I'd like to hear what is your field of education? Because obviously, you know, come up through an educational track. So what's your background, and how did you come to WSU Tri-Cities? And then maybe just a little bit about the history of WSU Tri-Cities. Like, how did the campus start? How did it, spawn, I guess maybe we call it, off Pullman, or, just, is that a good topic?
Sure, I'll try to remember all those. So
Okay.
easy to know, I am a psychologist.
That was my guess, but thank you.
That's my background. That was my training. Actually, I got my PhD in experimental neuropsychology, and then I changed into counseling psychology. You might notice from my background that I just never wanted to leave school. I entered higher education late, and as a first-generation college student myself, and once I got there, that was it. I was sold. I wanted to live my life on semesters. So, unfortunately, I don't do that so much anymore, but there is a natural rhythm, at least, to the semesters. We know that there's going to be some calm before some storm, and it's predictable, but actually, it is my passion. Higher education is absolutely my passion, and that's how I got to where I am. There's a bigger story, and I'll get to that. But as a first-generation college student, I know how important education can be. It's an equalizer. It is great. It is a great way for social mobility, not the only way, but certainly a really great way for social mobility. Key and crucial to an educated democracy, which, the importance of that can't be overstated at this point in time as we're approaching a presidential election. Very important to our civic society. So all of those things are big passion areas for me. So I was really fortunate to have made that leap into college. I actually happened into psychology because at some point someone said you have to pick a major, and I said, well, credits in, and ended up in psychology. I guess that was my area. But as a first-generation college student, I kind of didn't know what I was doing. They said choose classes, and I did. It was great, and went for my major, but really did find my passion there. I did all this in Colorado. I am born and raised in Colorado, and this is really my first step out of the state. Now, I'll go back to education because I think that was part of part of the question. So anyway, I chose my major of psychology and got noticed in psychology, which was kind of nice, and got asked to go into graduate school as we had more of an apprenticeship model at Colorado State University, and I was asked to become an apprentice graduate student and in experimental psychology, and ended up in experimental neuropsychology because I just loved the way the brain worked. Then I did my graduate work in grief and loss after head injury. I'm very fascinated with the human spirit and how people actually emotionally recover from so much trauma that I went back and did counseling, but you just could not keep me away from higher education. So I became a faculty member, and then was pegged to go into administration, which I don't know about Rebekah, but many of us say we'll never go into administration. Close to the students, and who would want to be an administrator? But as I thought about it, I thought my love in life is to impact students' lives. And you can do that clearly as a faculty member, but you can also do it in a very big way as an administrator. And once I realized we just had a different type of impact on students and a broader impact on students, I was sold. Stayed in administration. Came to WSU after a long career at Metropolitan State University of Denver. It was time for me to take a leap and try something different. And this opportunity came back, and the Tri-Cities was exactly the fit I was looking for. Very much WSU Tri-Cities serves the kind of population that I'm interested in serving, and it's been a terrific ride so far.
That's great. And how about just WSU Tri-Cities in general? What's just a just the founding story, like what year was the campus established, and just if you can talk about that just a little bit.
And we're really 30 years old
Okay.
as a WSU Tri-Cities, but we have a longer history than that. We actually started as part of the Hanford project. We're the General Electric School for graduate education. And so we actually started as a place for people who were working at Hanford to get masters and PhDs in engineering, because that was the workforce need. So our history is really very much in serving the workforce of the Tri-Cities area and advancing the needs of the Tri-Cities area. And then we became owned or operated by 3 different institutions: WSU, University of Oregon, and University of Washington. And we even had a mascot. It was a huskabee. We do have a picture of a huskabee. It's not the most attractive animal, and I'm kind of glad to switch over to a cougar. And then 30 years ago, WSU took over as the campus and the administration for the Tri-Cities campus.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. That was, I really appreciate that, because I think, when we have these discussions, again, me being new, I think, this is a discussion that we'd have, and for all of us getting to know each other, I appreciate your backstory. That's really, really interesting. We'll talk more about brain science some other time, maybe not on a Zoom call.
That'd be great.
Rebekah, how about you? Kind of similar story. What is your, and I know, like, I'm not an educator, so I'll probably use the wrong terminology, but what is your degree field and background? And then, what's been your journey to CBC? And then what's a little bit of the history of CBC?
Yeah, absolutely. So my undergrad's in psychology, so have a little bit of that in common with Sandra, but I'm a lawyer, so that's what I did in my prior life. I was actually practicing law and thought that would be that was my life from there forward. But I was starting to look for another law firm to work for. I was with Legal Services, mostly representing battered women at the time. And actually the law school that I went to, their career services office, I was connecting with them, asking what opportunities do you know of? And they actually said, well, our office is looking for a director for our office. Would something like that interest you? And my initial thought was no, but went over and talked to them, and my husband and I spent the weekend, thinking about that, and it just seemed like the right next step for me. And so started working back at my law school. I always say nobody grows up going, oh, I'm going to be a college administrator one day, because that's just not on anybody's radar. But once I started working in higher ed, just fell in love with it. And, like Sandra said, you see the impact that you make on so many lives every year, every day. And so I knew where I wanted to end up, that I would need something further than a law degree. I always say lawyers are the only ones that think, this is the only degree I'll ever need because I can now do anything with this. But I knew to have that door opener, I was going to need a doctorate. So then started working on a PhD in organizational leadership. Really interdisciplinary degree. Was fortunate to be able to kind of tailor it to where I wanted to go. And so it was really a mixture of business and education courses. And so from there, started in my dissertation studying about community colleges and learning about their mission and their impact on students, on their communities. And my heart's always been just drawn to service and wanting to help populations that don't have a lot of options. And so I knew that's where I wanted to end up. So after leaving my law school, working there, left there as their dean of students and started working in a community college. And that was, that was a long time ago, 1997, I think was my first job in, 2004 was my first job in a community college.
Okay.
And so how I got to CBC, eventually just knew after working in community colleges, was never interested in a presidency. I never wanted to be the front person. I like kind of being behind the scenes and helping somebody else, who's going to be up there, help them be successful. But just started seeing a lot of the research with the gaps coming in the leadership that was going to be needed for community colleges. I mean, it was just drastic percentages of retirements that were being predicted, and just really started feeling like, okay, I can either start to be part of the solution or, start to just keep complaining about it. So decided to go ahead and start preparing for that, and was really fortunate that the president that I was working for at my last community college in Michigan just really invested a lot of time and energy in mentoring me and helping me get prepared. And so and that was literally like 10 years just working on trying to make sure that I had all kinds of experiences. And he gave me those opportunities, even things that made no sense for my job description. So when I started looking for a presidency, honestly, Washington was not on my radar at all. When I thought of Washington, I thought the West Side and wasn't interested in the rain and the congestion and the cost of living. And but when we saw the opening for CBC, started researching this area and was pleasantly surprised to find, wow, okay, that's very different than what I was expecting. So when I got here, just fell in love with the Tri-Cities. My husband grew up in Montana and Albuquerque, and that area, that was just our heart. And so this was just a really great fit for us. And when I got onto the campus of CBC, just clicked with the folks there. Everybody was focused on students, excited about student success, was really impressed with our board of trustees, just the amount of support that they provided for me personally, but for the college, and what great advocates and leaders they are for our institution. So it really just felt like coming home. So just so excited to be here, and I'll be coming up on my 3rd year anniversary in November.
Okay.
So so just love being here. But
And,
CBC, so we were started in 1955.
Okay.
So been around for a few years. And that was about the time that a lot of the community colleges were taking off in the 50s and 60s across the country. And they were mostly, getting spun out of the K-12 districts. And we were no different, coming out of the Pasco School District. And so, so we've obviously grown just a little bit since that start. And now serve, over 11,000 students each year. Just really excited to be able to respond to the needs of the community, and doing everything from helping students learn English to getting up to some of our baccalaureate degrees if they choose, or working with our great partners like WSU and helping them transfer on to the university and complete their education there.
That's great. Let's shift gears to COVID. And we'll stay with you, Rebekah, but how is CBC, and I understand you guys are on the quarter system, so your fall quarter, if that's what you call it, it's coming up, so you haven't started yet, but just kind of describe how you're addressing that. Will your classes be remote or in person? And if they're remote, how do you bridge that divide? And maybe CBC had some experience doing that before with some, remote learning or something. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So our fall quarter starts on September 21st.
Okay.
So we still have some time, but I mean, we made the decision back in April about what we were going to be doing. So when we flipped to remote learning, I think that was March 17 was when we finished out our winter quarter. For us, the timing of that decision worked out really well, because literally when the governor came out and said, classes needed to be online, we had 1 week left of our winter quarter and just a couple days of finals exams. And we had already, we were reading the tea leaves. We knew this was coming. And so we had already made the decision we were going to push our spring quarter out a week to give faculty time for those that had not taught online, though we already offer a lot of online education. Some of our programs, could already be offered and taken by students 100% online. So lots of our faculty already did this and had a strong emphasis in this area. But for those who didn't or needed a refresher, or, weren't planning to for the spring and needed time to, redo their classes and pivot that to online, we had already planned that week. So for us, the timing ended up working out really well. And then, you know, it felt so much like every time a decision was coming out that we were having to react. And leaders don't like to react. We like to plan. You know, we're strategic. We want to be in charge. So we just early on, you know, again, we were all consuming more news than ever before, reading everything, listening to everything possible, and absolutely, you know, knew that it was going to take a vaccine, something that was going to allow herd immunity, as you know, a new term that never knew before. But before we'd be able to return to business as usual. So we made the decision in April that our summer and our fall would continue to be. So what can be online is online. Obviously, we have a great combination of those classroom classes, but then a lot of hands-on education. So you can't really learn how to be a welder or how to fix a car through the internet. So in May, we were allowed to return some of our hands-on instruction to campus, and then summer was able to scale that up. So our career and technical programs, those labs, all of our allied health programs, the labs involved with those classes, they're back on campus, have been on campus. Some of our science labs will be returning to campus. Some of them, especially I think it's mainly our biology, will be staying online because that's working really well. But we just want to make sure that the students are getting the best quality education and delivering it in the best method possible, but still making sure that we are minimizing the number of people on campus. So what can be online will stay online. What can't be has already been and will continue back on campus. And we're doing all of the, you know, requirements and have made, we have not changed any of that. We're not doing anything less for fall. So no visitors are really allowed on campus. You need to be there because you have a specific purpose to be there, whether you are you know, providing essential services as an employee, teaching, or taking care of grounds or buildings or what have you. If you are, and same thing with students who have to be on the campus for their classes, you have to go through a health screening station, answer certain questions, you know, go through that protocol, get your temperature checked. You're required to wear a mask, required to maintain those social distances. And we've got lots of markers around campus, you know, big stickers. I guess hawks don't really have feet, but we have big hawk feet, you know, every 6 feet in different areas. So as the indicator, this is where you stand. You know, we got plexiglass everywhere, and, you know, our custodial and facility staff's doing a phenomenal job doing extra deep cleaning. So, and some classes that had to be on campus, you know, we had to cut those sections in half so that we could have, we didn't have classrooms big enough to necessarily accommodate all of the standard capacity for that class. So some of them have been reduced to be able to maintain that social distancing in the classroom. So yeah, so there's a lot going on, but it's been going really well, which I really just feel like if you are being really disciplined about it and following all the protocols, it can be done well. Again, all our allied health programs, our Richland campus is 100% allied health programs in our 2 main facilities out there, and they have not had an issue at all, and they have been back, you know, since May. So I feel like they're a really good model for how it can be done well.
Oh, that's great. I appreciate your description of, you know, as in your role, you want to plan and manage everything. And I think that's something we've all been up against in COVID. You know, and a lot of the just unknown out there, that this is such a new disease. There is so much more that we're learning every day. And I think all of us in our roles, we're just not used to that unknown factor. We feel that everything's known. And so great explanation of how you've been able to, you know, evolve and kind of manage through this crisis. That's great. Sandra, how about the same question to you? I think, didn't WSU start on Monday? And I think we were on a call on Monday, and that's the day that Zoom had its crash. So maybe you can talk about that a little bit, and just how's WSU in general and WSU Tri-Cities bridging the remote learning gap, and what's the plan moving forward?
Sure, yeah, I think, you know, I will say that this is our first week, so we're almost to the end of our first week, and except for that Zoom crash early on Monday morning, everything has gone really smoothly. I'm very, very pleased. You know, students seem to be have no trouble logging in. Our faculty, I have to say, have worked really hard this summer to make sure that they're prepared. We were not in the middle of our quarters, but when we decided to go, or when we were asked or told to go to remote learning, it was the week before spring break. And so we all spent our spring break getting ready to do remote learning. So our faculty changed over from face-to-face learning to virtual learning in a week for the spring. And they did a fabulous job. But of course, we can always do better because we weren't necessarily used to that remote learning. And I'm purposely saying remote or virtual learning because we really didn't go online. We went into Zoom. We're still synchronous. So there are still times for classes where you show up to class, just like you asked me to be here today at 9 a.m. and here I am. So you're still interacting with your peers, you're still interacting with your professor at a regularly scheduled time, but it is virtual. And there are tricks, as you all know, to making sure that that virtual experience is a good experience and an interactive experience. And our faculty have been working diligently all summer to make sure that they've got the best techniques in place. We invested in some good learning technology like Learning Glass so that we could do good videos for students and things like that. So state-of-the-art videos. And Learning Glass is a technology it's like a whiteboard, but you stand behind it and you draw on it, and then there's a mirror image that shows to the person who's looking at it. So the videos are spectacular. One other thing about that and the remote learning piece is that Zoom, of course, allows you to record your lecture. So we have built in what in higher education we know of as high flex. So if you can't, for some reason, make your class, you can watch it later. So even though you do have that interaction like you normally would in a class, you also have the benefit of having it recorded to watch it later if you were not able to meet class on time. Because we know our students the whole community, students are part of the community, are having issues because of COVID. They may have to be home more with their children, or they may have had to change their work schedule, or they've moved back home with their parents and now they've got, 8 people who are vying for the internet at the same time. The internet just won't take it and those kinds of things. So we're trying to be as flexible as possible to get our students the education that they absolutely deserve coming out of this fall. But so far, so good. So that has been really great for us. We do, like CBC, we have some labs that are on campus. We have fewer labs on campus than they do. It's mostly our biology laboratories. We have a general ecology lab that's going to be on campus, but they come in small groups. We do have the social distancing. We do have the plexiglass up all over. We do have the mask requirement. Anybody who comes to campus has to attest that they do not have any symptoms or have not had those symptoms or been exposed to people with those symptoms. So we're mostly doing our labs through lab kits. And there may be some labs that just periodically come to campus. So for example, this is probably my favorite example. Let's just say geology was a pretty easy one. You can send rock kits home with students. Wine, not so much. So, especially if you're looking at students who might be underage. So you can't send samples of wine tasting home for students. So periodically they will need to come to campus to do their wine tasting classes. So even if the whole lab isn't on campus, there might be some portions of labs that are on campus because there's just some things that you can't do. Our nursing program, just like Rebekah's nursing program, is mostly on campus as well. I appreciate that as I age. I'd like my nurses to have some hands-on experience before they have to treat me, those kinds of things. But it's been really smooth. It's been really smooth. We were prepared for any eventuality. We didn't come out early like Rebekah did. I think I remember commenting when Rebekah came out and said, we're going online. I'm like, dang, you are so decisive. And kind of admiring that, because we were so hopeful we'd be able to go face to face in the fall, but the shifting sands of COVID certainly told us that we could not do that, and we made the decision in early August to be virtual. But we were prepared for any eventuality, so nothing really hit us by surprise. We were prepared with the plexiglass. Not been able to find cougar prints to match your hot, but we definitely have the social distance markers on the floor, and all of those things. Our bookstore is open 10 to 3 with appropriate social distancing. So we were prepared for whatever came our way. We like to be ahead of things, as you say, Rebekah, as leaders, and we like to kind of plan forward. I just didn't know we'd have to put so many plans in place at once and not know exactly which one we would be choosing. So, but it's great to have had all of those in place now as we're starting.
That's great. Well, excuse me, we're about halfway through the program and I haven't asked for questions yet. This has been a really good conversation. I just want to ask our audience, if you do have a question and you're on Zoom, you can use the question and answer box at the bottom. And if you're on Facebook, you can put your question in the comments and we'll get to as many questions as we can. I think we do have one that kind of ties into what we just talked about. And that is, have either of you seen changes in enrollment due to COVID possibly, and then maybe due to, the shift into more remote learning, and how do you see that playing out into the future? And if it is an issue, are there things that you can do about it, or what's that plan moving forward? And maybe we'll start with Rebekah on this one.
Yeah, so our enrollment has been all over the place. Unfortunately, the trends that we usually see are completely irrelevant during this. So everything's new. So in the spring, our enrollment was down 3% from where we had been the year prior, spring quarter. And then summer, we were up 7%. So wow. I don't know. And we planned, so the budget that we have put together for next year, we projected that we would be down 10% for fall. We obviously still have, a few weeks to go. So whether that's going to actually happen or not, I don't know. Right now we're down about 6%. And usually when we open enrollment, it, just spikes big time and then it just kind of levels off. But this year it has just been steadily climbing every day throughout the summer quarter. So we're continuing to see increases. So it's possible we'll be where we were last fall. I just don't really know. Obviously, there's a million reasons why it's impacting enrollment. Some folks just don't want to, be doing learning this way, which really concerns me, because I know the longer they sit out, the harder it will be to come back. Others don't have the access or the, to the internet, to the technology that they need. And we've given out so many hundreds of laptops and hotspots, and we stole this idea from Sandra and extended the internet from the network, our Wi-Fi from one of our buildings into the parking lot, so students, can drive in and use that in the parking lot. We have all kinds of drive up, assistance where students can drive up and either pick up equipment or get assistance that way. So we're doing everything we can to help provide the tools that they need and also get them comfortable with technology. So, and some students, they don't have it, but they don't want it because they're uncomfortable with it. And so they're trying to still use their phone, which obviously that's not great. So there's a lot of different reasons why it's impacting it. But we're doing everything possible to still make sure students are staying engaged and they're feeling supported and they're getting what they need to be successful.
Yeah. Sandra, how about WSU? How's it going, and are you seeing an impact on enrollment?
Yeah, we are. I could say ditto to
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
in lots of ways. You know, one of the things I think has happened, and we weren't the only ones that were dealing with the shifting sands of COVID over the last 6 months. The students were too, and they were trying to make decisions and decide whether school was right for them at this time, and if it was, how would they manage it, and if it wasn't, we tried to convince them that it was. And it's not because we just want enrollment. It's because, as Rebekah said, it's really important. Once you stop out of your education, you're far less likely to start it up again, and that's not good for anybody. So we were trying to be pretty proactive and helping students make the best decisions for themselves. But so we saw our enrollment sort of drop over the summer, I think, and it wasn't really a drop. I think the students were just trying to decide. And so we saw later enrollments and later commitments than we normally would. I think in the end, and we won't know until the 10th, that's our census day, exactly where we're going to land with enrollment. I think we will be slightly down in enrollment as well. I think that there's just some people, it's just a difficult situation. Some people are not able to make it work, and my heart goes out to them because we're struggling in this, and some students are just not going to be able to make it work for them this semester. I think in the future we're going to see our enrollments bounce back. I definitely think we will, but I'm not so sure that education is going to necessarily be exactly the way it was before COVID. I really don't. We're learning so much about technology. We're learning so much about good pedagogy now that I think we are going to see some permanent changes now. We've actually known for a long time that a hybrid model where you have some technology component and some face-to-face component is a really good way to teach people. It's very effective with learning, almost more effective than all online or all face-to-face. So now that we have been, I hate to say it this way, but sort of forced to use technology, I don't think we're going to go back. I think we have learned that it's doable, that it's really good for people. And I think we're going to be seeing much more of the hybrid model, which again, I think is excellent pedagogy, and research shows that it is excellent pedagogy moving forward. So I think higher education is going to come back. I think it's going to probably look a little different. And frankly, my opinion is it's going to look a whole lot better.
That's awesome. That reminds me of a college history class that I took, and I always remember the analogy in that the history professor made the point that, history is caused by a series of revolutions, that history doesn't change on its own. Things happen that cause us to change. And I wonder if, because I think we're all aware of the need for a higher trained, a higher educated workforce as we encounter demographic shifts, throughout the country, throughout the world, in these industries. And I think that was an ongoing question, not being here with our partners, but, looking at it from a broader perspective. I know that we're all trying to work on how can we bridge this gap? How can we make sure that we've got the right skills and education levels to fill even just, replacement of retiring workers, let alone moving up in technology, in different fields and stuff. Do you think that this evolution, as you're describing, or this, not by choice, but now we have to work on remote learning, we have to work on different learning models. Do you think that this might actually turn into be an opportunity for us to learn from, hey, we have to go this way, but now let's just roll into it and make it better, and let's start really filling some of these gaps? Do you think that's an opportunity? That's probably a softball question, but do you guys want to take that one on and start with Rebekah?
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody's talking about, and we're no different. So what are the silver linings that are coming out of this? What things were we, in essence, forced to do that ended up being better, that we're going to keep? So part of our welcome week, when everybody comes back and helps us launch the new school year, we have sessions that we're going to be talking about that, the silver linings. So yeah, there's lots of different things. I mean, some of what Sandra said, just new technologies that we scrambled to get up in place to really increase the effectiveness of the remote learning, the online education. Some forms, that used to always be paper, and now everything can be done online. Our placement process for students, it used to be, you had to come to campus and do that there. And now there's a guided self-placement model for students. So lots of improvements that we have made to adjust to the current situation are improvements that we're absolutely going to be keeping. And, and the opportunities of what new programs are going to come out of this. And that's kind of where we're trying to make sure we're connecting with the employers in the area, and also just watching some industries to see how they're changing, and then how our curriculums need to change to accommodate that in our community, make sure that we're still producing the right kind of employees.
It's great. And Sandra?
Yeah, no, I would absolutely agree with that. And I think that, we're also looking at, not everybody can come to a full-on semester class all the time, or a quarter class all the time. How do we make those kinds of adjustments? We've been looking very hard, as you might imagine, about how we schedule our classes. And so are there ways to offer classes in shorter spurts, or more intensely, or fit people's schedules better? Although I have teased my students that there's no more snow days, because now we know we can education remotely wherever you are. So easy, really a joke, but there are, I got in higher ed because I like education. My hidden agenda was really because I like snow days. That's kidding too. But really, there are so many things that we're learning about. How do you deliver? How do you schedule classes? How do you make it fit people's lives? And I think that that's just going to continue as we move forward, because people's lives are changing too. And Rebekah and I both know this. Our average age of our students is higher. Mine is 26. People have lives at that age, and we want education to be able to fit into their lives. We also know that the adult learner population is growing, and we need to be able to adjust to that. And I always like to say we need to fit education into people's career life cycle, because it may be that you learn a trade at one point, but then you want to move into a management or something like that. And how do you fit education back in to get into management? Or you see the next person retiring and you're tapped on the shoulder to become the next leader, and then you need a different skill set, or a skill set becomes almost obsolete. Good heavens, I learned on a manual typewriter how to type. That probably dates me, but I still use that skill, but I have to integrate a bunch of different skills into that. So people are constantly having to upskill. So how do we continue to offer and deliver education across that career life cycle in a way that people can receive it given their life? I think that the pandemic has helped us see how that can be possible.
That's great. We have a number of questions, and I'd like to try to get through them. So we got about 15 minutes left. I'm going to go into some kind of, I call it rapid fire questions, but just answer them normally. I don't think we have to rapid fire. We're not on a quiz show today. Here's one that that talks about, we really see both of you presenting in public forums, and you seem to have a great collaboration. Was that a natural evolution, or did you guys sit down and say, okay, how can we work together? And I think just in this conversation, I've learned that you both have that psychology degree background. And so does that help you? And then what are some benefits from both of you guys working together? And I totally agree with that. You're clearly a team, and that works so well for our community. But can you both talk about that a little bit? We'll start with Sandra this time.
I can say that my very, very first meeting in the Tri-Cities with anyone that I would be working with was Rebekah. We had breakfast at 8 o'clock in the morning when I came to look for a house in January when I started. And that was the first meeting. And I had heard throughout my interview that previous relationship, let's just say, was not close. And that it was a priority for this community for this relationship close between CBC and WSU Tri-Cities. And so that was a priority of mine coming in, and I believe it was a priority for Rebekah coming in as well, but I'll let her answer that question too. But I also come, as I just talked about, sort of that career life cycle. I don't see higher education institutions as necessarily competitors. People are going to go to different institutions at different times in their lives for different things. And the more we can collaborate, the better able we are to serve our constituents and to serve our communities. And that's just a belief I brought with me, and this stays with me throughout my my career life cycle, is that's a very important thing to do. Is more we can work together in higher education, the better off everybody is. So I'll pass it to Rebekah.
Yes, similar. During the interview process, I absolutely heard that there were concerns about the relationship between the two institutions and how we needed to, that needed to be a priority. So I knew that going in, before I even met Sandra, knew that that was going to be important to me personally and to our institution, and had met before Sandra was hired spent some time with John Mancinelli. And he was one of the first people that reached out to me when I was hired and sent me a note and talked about the relationship between our institutions. So I was just really fortunate that when I actually met Sandra for breakfast that I liked her. So it worked out well. Didn't have to force us working together. We just clicked well together, and we're both, another thing probably a lot of people don't know, we're both married to a Robert. So yes, our husbands click well, and so it just works. It works good. And we absolutely both know we're committed to that collective impact model, where we know we can accomplish more working together than any of us working on our own. So I think our partnership has been strong and is going to continue to be strong.
Yeah, no, I compliment both of you on that. I mean, me being new, it's obvious how well you work together and that you actually do like each other, which is a real plus when you spend so much time together. But it's a huge opportunity for our community. When we're out talking to companies about moving to the Tri-Cities or expanding their footprint, how can we work collaboratively together to get them that skilled workforce that they need, be it education, training, anything in between. And so just having the partnership is a huge attractant for us. So we really appreciate it. Here's one for Rebekah. CBC has a world-renowned nuclear technology program. Will there be any impacts on the number of certified techs that graduate? Or I know you talked about the tech labs before and how you're kind of having to make accommodations, but that specifically, will that kind of be a bump in your pipeline, if you will, of graduates, or do you know any more about that?
Yeah, actually, no, it should not.
Okay.
They were one of the programs that, and I don't know exactly why, but the program director and working with the faculty, they were able to pivot that pretty quickly to remote learning initially. And then they certainly were one of the areas that we were able to get back to, some face-to-face instruction when that became possible. So it should not impact the number of graduates coming out of that program at all. And we're, hoping that pipeline, because then now we just are launching that, the bachelor's, which is an extension of that program this fall, and hoping a lot of those students and others are going to step into that pipeline for that program.
And will the bachelor's in that be through WSU Tri-Cities, or can CBC do
It's a baccalaureate of applied science through CBC,
Oh, okay.
and then they can transition into the master's degree at WSU Tri-Cities.
Okay, that's great. Here's a couple about connecting to K-12 education and where they're all starting locally their school year online. Is there any collaborations that you're working on? And then there's a couple other questions about have you seen a change in your incoming students, possibly because of COVID and the remote learning? Have you, we talked about demographics of your students, seen any changes with that? And then if there is any changes, has there created more need for student aid? And so I'm kind of combining three questions there together. Are you able to, is there any collaboration opportunities beyond what you're already doing with K-12 on remote learning?
Sandra and I have been working, we have been meeting with the superintendents from Kennewick, Pasco, and Richland every week, and trying to make sure that our communication between all of our institutions is strong, and have talked about some collaborations on a few different items that we kind of still have in the works. But absolutely, I mean, trying to share learnings between all of our organizations to make sure that together we're serving all of our students well.
It's great.
And tremendously helpful is meeting with the K-12 leaders. It really has. We have a lot of differences, but in what we do, we don't have differences between each other, but it's been really helpful. One of the things that we did this year, and it's actually still available online, the week before classes started. So we did a jump start program. And we knew that there were students that were coming out of high school who didn't finish online, and some of them, or that did finish online, and some of them were not feeling confident about their ability to start college. So we offered some jumpstart classes, upping your skill in reading and writing and math, study skills, those kinds of things, so that students could feel a little more prepared coming into the college year. So that was one of the kind of bridges that we did between high school and college. There was a second part of your question, which was really, do we see more need?
Yeah, financial aid need, and or have you seen, and maybe it's too early to tell, have you seen a change in the students that are applying and starting school? More fresh out of high school students versus more adult learners, and maybe it's too early to see any of those impacts. And then another question about, if there is a change, have you seen an increase in financial aid need?
We definitely see an increase in need because, the COVID didn't just come with COVID, it came with a financial crisis too. So we definitely see more need, more food insecurity, those kinds of things. We've started and we have our food bank, and we actually took our food bank out to areas so that students have greater access to the food bank. We are fortunate to have partnered with Lamb Weston and with Second Harvest on our food bank, so we have fresh choices for our students, and taking it kind of out from North Richland into Pasco, into Kennewick, and even into Prosser has really helped access to food. We also have a hardship fund, so that students, if they can't pay their rent or need some emergency funding, we have some money that people have donated that we can help them through some financial crises. We have a $25,000 donation from STCU for that, and a $35,000 grant from Battelle. So the community has stepped up to the plate to really help our students in need. And because they're just like other people in our community, they're just trying to go to school at the same time. So we've been really grateful to our community stepping up, and really pleased that we've been able to help and assist and keep students on track toward their degree.
That's great. Becky, anything to add or any more on that question?
I mean, doing the same kind of things. One of the areas that never closed on our campus was the food pantry, and the Student Emergency Fund, very fortunate, had the same kind of donations from the community. We also had CARES Act money that we had half of it was dedicated to direct student emergency needs. And so we were able to, we had 1.92 million that went directly to students above and beyond financial aid. And I mean, we could have given it all away in the spring, and we tried to, sparse it out so that we then had some for summer. And I think we had maybe 500,000 left for this fall, hoping that we're, going to get some more through the next stimulus act if that happens. But yeah, no, students, the financial needs for students went straight up. So really fortunate, just our community and our foundation and what was available through the CARES Act has been very instrumental.
Oh, that's great. We're down to 3 minutes. Maybe as a final topic, quickly, are we at a point that you can both talk about the pilot program with AWB on internships? Is that something that we can? And if we can't, then we'll save it for a later program. But I'm not sure if we're officially launching or not, but can we, if we're not launching, can we tantalize people a little bit, give them just a little insight?
Well, I think that position is posted, right, Rebekah?
I think the position is posted, yes. We will do an official launch, I think like October, a little bit later, that there will be kind of an official signing ceremony between all of us. But yeah, another thing that we're partnering on is this internship portal that will help support not just college students, but all kinds of students at the high school level as well, and connecting them with employers in the community. And AWB is the one that has been the leader in this and purchasing this portal from Indiana. So I don't think we're supposed to be giving out too many details. So maybe that's
Okay.
a good tantalizer. And the
Tantalizers
chamber,
are good.
yeah, the chamber is supporting us and has a position posted that will be helping to get that up and running.
Matchmaking for interns.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's another one of those technologies that
Yeah. Yeah.
we'll be able to use to everybody's advantage into the future.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm sorry if I was too early on that one, but I do think it's a great program. And I think from an industry perspective, and the businesses that we all work with, I think there's been a need for that for so long. To start with internships makes a lot of sense, but then, be able to hopefully use it in the future as this connector in between, how are demands in the industry changing? What are the degrees, certificates, trainings that are needed to, for the future workforce, and then be able to kind of get that down our educational pipeline so that students of all ages have access to it and they have a better idea. I think maybe we've all been through it. I think both of you talked about it in kind of your story when we started, but we've all been through that point in our lives where we go like, well, I don't really know enough about myself to pick my major, right? Like, how do you do that? We should pick our majors at the end of our lives when we know ourselves really well, but unfortunately we can't do that. So I think, this type of again, collaboration amongst many partners, and it's great that AWB and the Chamber are really heading this effort up and partnered with CBC and WSU, but I think it's going to be a great example of how we can use technology to make that connection and, hopefully fill these gaps a little bit better as we move forward. So thank you for that. Well, it's 10 o'clock. Do you guys want to make just a real brief closing statement? I really appreciate your time this morning, and you've both been very open, and this has been a great discussion. And, we really appreciate both of you, your institutions, and the partnership that you have with the whole community. And from TRIDEC's perspective, we really appreciate it. But you have just some closing remarks, and we'll start with Sandra this time.
Really, I just want to thank you for having us. It's really a great pleasure to be here, and I watch these all the time. So it was sort of giddy when I got invited, to be honest. So really, thank you for having us. I think education is an important topic, and I'm always happy to talk about it, as you might imagine. But it's so important to our community, and I just want to thank you for having us to be able to talk about it, and thank the community for all of your support for education. As I've said, it's a great place to be in the Tri-Cities as an educator, and thank you. Just thank you.
Rebekah?
Ditto. Thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, next time you guys won't have the same questions. We'll give each of you a different question, and then you can just say ditto, and then we'll move on.
No, but I would just add, just for everybody listening or anybody who watches this later, again, for both, not for our institutions, but if you know students, prospective students, people that should be students that are in your life, I get that this is a huge disruption, but again, just the benefits that come from education, the great equalizer, providing that economic and social mobility, And both of our institutions serve such a large population of first-generation students, lower socioeconomic. Please encourage them. I mean, I get they may need to do things differently, but if at all possible, to not stop out, not drop out, not take that year off. If you need to reduce, that's, you know, that's one thing, but to just encourage them to keep going, and just, you know, whether it's just one class at a time, just keep at it. And we're here to support them. So any help that our community can provide, it's going to benefit all of us. So thank you so much for inviting us, Karl. Yeah, this has been great. A lot of fun.
No, well, thank you both again. Appreciate your time. Thank you for your commitment to the community and education in our community. It's a really important part of what we have to present and to sell as TRIDEC. So thanks again. Have a great day and a great weekend, and we'll look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you. You too.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.